What the President of the United States intends to do today is to announce an executive order that will essentially shut down the American border. Here from the wokes at the Associated Press, the White House is telling lawmakers President Biden is preparing to sign off on an executive order that would shut down asylum requests at the U.S.-Mexico border once the average number of daily encounters hits 2,500 between ports of entry, with the border reopening only once that number declines to 1,500, according to several people familiar with discussions. The impact of the 2,500 figure means the executive order could go into immediate effect because daily figures are higher than that now. So essentially, what this means is that if people cross the border, not at points of entry that is designated border checkpoints, but just randomly walk across the border or swim across the Rio Grande, and it's more than 2,500 a day, the whole border will be shut down and everyone's amnesty request or asylum request will immediately be rejected. This is very similar to the Langford plan that the Republicans rejected pushing forward on. So the question is, why do it now instead of 3 years ago? If you could do it this whole time, why do it now? Well, there's an answer to this, and you're not going to get this in the media. This is why you have me, to tell you what's actually going on. There's a reason Joe Biden is pushing this amnesty plan and this border closure plan now. Number one, polling, and number two, litigation. Let me go to the left-wing Axios here before I get there. 5 months before the election, and in a crucial month for the campaign, Biden is determined to neutralize what could be his biggest political vulnerability. He's also using the power of the presidency to stare down his critics in Congress. Confident voters want to see action on the border. Biden's willing to risk a defeat in the courts and anger from his party's progressive base for taking the dramatic action, even without the $14 billion the White House argued for months was necessary for a lasting solution. Therein lies the riddle of why this is happening. One, the polling has turned pretty decisively against him. I don't know if you're aware of this, but thus far, there's been no polling bounce for Joe Biden after the Donald Trump conviction. I know, it's pretty remarkable, actually. We've got a number of polls out. I suspected that you would see a pretty sizable drop for Trump, even if he rebounds. But thus far, Morning Consult, he's up 2. Forbes, Harris, he's up 2. Reuters, Biden up 2. Tip, it's a tie. Emerson up 2 for Trump. NPR, Biden up 2. Quinnipiac, Biden up 1. Harvard, Harris, Biden up 6. Fox News, Trump up 1. Harvard, Harris, Trump up 6. Yahoo News, tied race. In margin of error, Donald Trump has a 0.7 of a percentage point increase. You add in Robert Kennedy, he's over 2 points ahead of Joe Biden. There's been a little bit of a dip, but there's been a dip for Joe Biden as well. So Joe Biden, biggest liability right now, besides the economy, which he can't really do anything about at this point, it's the border. He needs to look tough on the border, except let's go back to the key phrasing from Axios in how they're treating this. Biden's willing to risk a defeat in the courts and anger from his party's progressive base. That gives you the answer of why now. It's not just the polling. Joe Biden is doing this now because it gives progressives time to go to court and get an injunction to stop him. Had Joe Biden done this last year and progressives run to court and got an injunction, the litigation would have proceeded and concluded by now, and if possible, the injunction gone away and Biden's executive order gone into effect and he secured the border. By doing it now, there's no way the border can actually be secured. So Joe Biden can look like he's securing the border and blame the courts and progressives for being unable to secure the border. And because it's so close to the election, there's no chance that this policy will actually go into effect before the election. So Biden can actually accomplish a couple of things. One, make himself look like he's standing up to progressives, while two, carrying out the progressive agenda of an open border, while three, blaming courts. Say, well, I do it, except this progressive judge in San Diego won't let me. This is all border theater. It's all border theater. He could have done this 3 years ago, and he chose not to. He chose to wait until 5 months before the election, knowing it'll be litigated, knowing his injunction will probably be paused by a federal judge, knowing that This gives him political theater to look like he's doing something without actually accomplishing anything, and progressives get a big pass. That's what's going on here. It's all theater. He doesn't really mean it. The reality here is that he's also being led by the polls yet again. Joe Biden shifted his position on Israel and Gaza and Hamas because of the polling, because of the voting, because of the uncommitted votes of Michigan. Joe Biden has dropped using the word Bidenomics because of the polling on Bidenomics. And now Joe Biden is attempting to secure the border without actually doing so because the polling shows it's a big issue for the American public. Time and time again, what Joe Biden is doing is being led by the polls instead of leading. Side note, there's some academic research out now, which I find interesting. And I don't dispute it. I think it actually shows the truth. It's a study of political science, not just in the United States, but in Europe as well. And it shows that political leaders who do what is popular tend to lose re-elections more often. Counterintuitive, is it not? Politicians who do what is popular tend to lose re-election more often than those who do what they set out to do without being led by popular opinion. Why? Well, people are stupid. People are voters. People are fickle in their stupidity. They change their minds all the time. What was popular today is going to be unpopular tomorrow. What's trendy today is going to be a past trend tomorrow. So instead, you come in with your vision of how the country should work and make it work, and guess what? You get elected more often than when you come in and you say, oh, the voters want me to do A, B, C, D, and E. I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and E. And, well, you do A, B, C, D, and E. And it turns out they were bad ideas because people are stupid, and that's what people wanted. And you did what the stupid people wanted, thinking it'll get yourself reelected, and instead you lose. It's a fascinating study. But that's what's going on here. Polling, according to Dick Morris, when he told Bill Clinton in the 90s how to use polling was to tell you how to talk about the things you already wanted to do. Polling was never to be used to tell you what things you should do, but to tell you how to implement the things you already wanted to do. Joe Biden is using polling to tell him what he should do. And the polling right now says number one issue, the border. All right, let's come up with a plan to fix the border, but let's do it in such a way that it's not actually going to get done. So they wait until 5 months before the election. They tell everybody exactly what sections of the law they're going to use and how they're going to implement it so that progressives can go on and get their lawsuits done without having to see all of the language of the order. So they can announce it today, and then tomorrow progressives can run to court, or later today run to court and get a court injunction and freeze it. And Biden can say, oh, it's the courts, it's the progressives, they're stopping me. How dare they stop me? And notice, unlike student loans, he's not going to try to do an in run around the courts on this one. He'll honor the will of the progressive judge who says you can't implement this yet. It's also obvious. Also, by the way, he's got a debate coming up at the end of this month with Donald Trump. He wants to be able to say he secured the border before that debate. But you know, there's a warning sign for Biden. I find this hilarious. Several Democrats, this from Axios, in competitive Senate races, declined President Biden's invitation to join him Tuesday at the White House when he announces drastic new action. The White House invited all Democratic senators to join Biden at the event, announcing the new executive actions, but John Tester, Tammy Baldwin, Jackie Rosen, and Bob Casey from Montana, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, respectively, all of whom are seeking re-election in battleground states, will not attend. They had scheduling conflicts. It's really kind of notable that the swing state Democrats from Montana, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Pennsylvania do not want to go to a White House event where the president intends to secure the border. It's a big issue in those states. Jackie Rosen, who's running for re-election in Nevada, Democratic senator, she's been campaigning on border security. She's been campaigning on securing the border. John Tester has as well up in Montana. He's been campaigning on border security. We got to do something to secure the border. And here comes Joe Biden saying he's going to secure the border, and they won't show up at the White House to get credit for Joe Biden securing the border. That tells you everything you need to know about how ineffective this executive order is going to be. Biden's executive order is expected to enable law enforcement officials to turn back migrants who illegally cross the border. Many of the Senate Democrats who won't be making the trek to the White House on Tuesday have pounded the table for the president to take executive action on the border. So here he comes, taking executive action on the border, and there are no-shows. That tells you exactly how effective this executive order is going to be. They don't want to be there knowing it's going to blow up in the Democrats' faces. It's remarkable politics that these incumbent Democrats in swing states are refusing to go to the White House to watch the president implement border security, something that they're campaigning on doing. They all want border security. All of them, Rosen and Tester in particular, been very vocal about the need to have border security and stem the tide of illegal immigrants coming across the border. That must mean this is going to be a really ineffective thing that Joe Biden does if they don't want to be there. But he's only doing it because of the polling. He is led by the polling. You know, again, the Hamas situation. He changed his mind on Israel because of the polling. He's changed his mind on border security because of the polling. He can't run on the economy. That's why he's going to run on convicted felon Trump. He's already out there on the campaign trail calling Donald Trump a convicted felon because he can't run on a good economy. Prices keep going up. In fact, there's this from CNN.
Well, many Americans may be getting hot under the collar when they open their electric bills this summer. The cost of keeping cool is expected to rise nearly 8% to $719 for the bills running June through September, according to the National Energy Assistance Directors Association. And some areas of the country, like the Pacific and the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the Midwest, may see even a higher increase, a higher share of increase. And that's up from $527 in 2019. The numbers have been rising steadily year to year. Utility prices skyrocketed in recent years, making it harder for people to keep up with both their cooling bills in the summer and their heating bills in the winter.
And your groceries are more expensive, and your gas is more expensive, and 5 months before the election, Joe Biden finally decides it's time to secure the border. Good luck with that.